Right. Now, the first rule about rolling roll is, if I may just move those a moment, Claire, is no one class can ever own all the work. Each teacher in the team has to realise they can all borrow from each other, and the classes somehow must be alerted to the fact that somebody else will take this on. Thank you for making it possible, is the attitude. The second thing is that, you see, everything that children make becomes open and vulnerable for modification, therefore. They've to be supported in this. The second one, I'll come round here and then it's easier for me to reach. Can you see them all right? The third one is that the domains that we briefly mentioned in our last discussion seed all the lessons that are to come. Now, yours has been seeded by the fact you've said, if somebody is a difficult teenager, who is affected? And you've worked round to the school last, which was quite clever, because they're in school, you see. To take on the role of teachers, considering difficulties like that, is harder than taking on the police, because they can use cliches up to a point, but using cliches on teachers is a bit tricky. The next thing is that all the tasks that you use in this sort of work will have that affective zone. It has to matter. It's got to feel important. It's got to feel reasonable to be doing this. It's not just, now I'm going to tell you what it's like to be you know, living in this city or being a patient in this hospital. You can't use transmission, the one-way transmission system. You've got to use something which catches people into thinking, bye, I can't resist this, I must get on with it. That all tasks will produce some product. Now, the product may be tangible, like a piece of writing. The product may be tangible in that you've recorded a discussion. The product may be half a stained glass window, because I believe you made a stained glass window in your... And so on and so on. There's always a product. So when you think of task, you have to think of what can make the outcome from this task so that another class can utilise that outcome. And it may be just, you know, 2 jotted memories down on a scrap of paper, but you're looking for it all the time. And when you don't get it, there's a kind of gap that you have to drop that for a while because there isn't anything to be recycled. The next thing is that the tasks must always serve the curriculum intentions throughout. The knowledge aspect of the curriculum intention, this is the known knowledge about how rocks hold water or whatever it might be, and the feeling intention of the tasks. And therefore curriculum, in your case it's this one, is always forefronted. It's never, what will I do today with them? It's saying, what will the curriculum demand of me to do today? It's quite difficult breaking rules down, isn't it, on something? And I may not have done these very well. You never know, you might think of some more. The teacher becomes an artist designer, not a technician. Now you see, in a way, that is technical. You've worked on it in what could be a mechanistic way. You've said, it affects the police, okay. It now affects this, it affects this. The mechanics of it, the blurred edges will be there for the children who keep going through the cycle, but the blurred edges are not built into every one. Today it's the police, then it'll be, and so on and so on. I'm not condemning that at all, you realise that. The next rule, and they're all equally important, of course, you know, I have to put them in some order, that the tasks must always seem ever so reasonable for the children. You see, we have to face it, school is a totally artificial place. And it's very, very difficult to make it feel like what we're doing here is so important that it's as important as what you do when you're outside. A lot of kids stop bothering once they get into school. And they become teacher dependent, and to a certain extent don't have to be very responsible for what goes on here, because you've got it all planned out anyway, and they'll expect you to. It's their part, their expectation. So when we set up this whole thing, it relates with signing. That if it's signed to all be of a piece, it would seem reasonable to do that then. And it never must make them feel foolish, of course, which is easier said than done. The next thing is the teacher must, and this is something that obviously we never learn how to do perfectly. The teacher has to control the language so that they never do a one-way transmission job, they don't give orders, and they don't pump a load of information at people outside the circumstances in which they find themselves. So you can't suddenly go into lecture mode without permission and a contract. For example, I mean, this is a bit of a digression. Supposing they were running that animal shelter you were thinking about. There'd come a time, wouldn't there, when looking at how dogs and cats are differently formed, they've got certain basic things. They've got pelvises and four legs, one at each corner, and this, that, and the other. But there might be an occasion when it would be very important scientifically to really study how bones move and muscles cause movement and respond to movement. Now, you see, you really can't stand and do a lecture on that unless you get the contract that either somebody who really does know comes in, like a vet, in which case they can, or you take on the role of the visiting lecturer. And then you wouldn't come in to tell them, you'd come in to ask them what they already know. That's what I mean by the teacher's control of language constantly makes it now important and avoids the teacher telling stuff where people switch off. But I'm not saying teachers don't provide information. They provide information all the time, and the best. The next thing is, if you want children to do tasks with an affective element in it, you have to give them a point of view from which they enter the situation. You did that in your work, the point of view of the police who have to come and report a misdemeanour. Well, the police have a point of view, and the people who receive the point of view, however you set it up, will have to enter it from their point of view. Because the girl never entered it, you've always got this framing of distance. Now, and this is really difficult, this is the hardest, how do you endow children very quickly, in now time, with not long explanations about how we're going to do it today, which that might imply, so that from the very first beginning, you've keyed them in to what their power is in the situation. Now, keying is the most risky of all the skills. And I don't know if you've consciously ever done this, because most teachers begin with instructions.
I don't think I've done it.
Yes. Well, they tend to say, now what we'll do today is we're going to have a such and such. And they set up the scene, and it's very comfortable, and it reassures the children that things are going on as normal, and so on and so on. But keying is always in now time. You are in the circumstance, empowering them to enter. And we shall be dealing a lot with that keying, so I won't go into it in detail at the moment. So here are 11 fundamental laws that apply in this system. And it's nothing to do with how you would do it or I would do it. You don't have to do it like I would do it, but you will have to do it. They all matter. Very, very much. You can't avoid any of them.